Gambia government partners with Google to create a digital map. South Sudan reopens schools after 6 months closure due to COVID-19 pandemic. National Assembly minority leader supports flexible requirements for presidential candidates. This and more coming your way on The World Today.
This is Africa TV and many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. Now, finding a physical address in the Gambia is usually a nightmare because for most part of the country, there are no known street addresses. People use landmarks like mosques, churches and even streets to give direction to visitors. And while this lack of physical addresses are yet to be fixed, the Gambia government said it is working with information technology giant Google to implement a digital address map for the Gambia. Juldin Jai Suare tells us more of that.
Gambia's Ministry of Information announced Friday that it is finalizing efforts with Google, one of the world's leading tech giants, to implement a digital address map for the Gambia. The Minister of Information, Ibrahima Silla, made the announcement during a weekly press briefing, said the partnership with Google through its Africa initiative will support the country with a solution called Google Plus Codes to help address the digital address map challenges in the Gambia.
This solution will lay the foundation for the following services in the Gambia. 1. ICT and telecommunication services. 2. Location-based services, which includes transportation, navigation, localization, monitoring and tracking of objects and properties, including land management. 3. Support the introduction of interconnected intelligent transportation services. 4. Enhance the realization of establishing smart tourism, smart cities, smart homes, smart building services, which are all interconnected through digital mapping.
Minister Silla also said that the Google Plus codes will help transform the agricultural sector through the use of smart and precision-driven technologies, among others.
6. Enhance the monitoring and management of environment and marine resources. 7. Introduction of industrial automation in the Gambia. And 8. Enhance the introduction of smart electricity grid services amongst a host of services.
In addition to these services, the Google Plus Codes solution will spur innovation in businesses and service delivery, according to the Minister of Information. The digital address map for the Gambia initiative is expected to create employment opportunities for the citizenry. For iAfrica News, I am Julden Jai Suare.
Gambia government working with Google to develop a digital map for the Gambia. And from the report, next we head to Tunisia because Tunisian authorities are working on modalities to revive the country's economy, which has been affected by the COVID-19 global pandemic. Well, experts say the country could lose up to $9 billion of revenue by the end of 2020. The country's prime minister has highlighted his government's approach in mitigating the economic challenges. Details of that in this report.
Tunisia's post-revolution economic woes have been exacerbated by the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. Now experts are warning that the North African state would lose $9 billion of real GDP by the end of 2020 due to the COVID-19-induced economic crisis.
The mechanism to be put in place should dictate 35% of the financing of the global rescue plan to improving the economic competitiveness of the country, 30% to the development of public investment in basic infrastructure and more environmentally friendly energy sources, 25% to back inclusive private jobs, particularly bad hit by the crisis, and 10% to support vulnerable social groups.
The head of the African Institute of Financial Economics says the state should promote competitiveness by including a tax cut over 3 years, as well as a reduction in contributions and fees paid by companies, regardless of their level of profitability.
First of all, the state must boost the purchasing power of the middle class. The next component of the plan is dedicated to social and regional cohesion. It should provide for investment in health, education, and youth employment, notably through the hiring incentives and tax breaks for companies.
Tunisia's Prime Minister Hichem el-Meshishi declared that the top short-term priority of his government is to stop what he described as the hemorrhaging of public finance. Meshishi noted that the government debt will reach 80 billion dinars, around $30 billion by late 2020.
A better socio-economic situation and the implementation of far-reaching reforms are key short and middle-term priorities. A sound management of state resources and a better control of public spending are major challenges to tackle the hemorrhage.
According to the National Institute of Statistics, Tunisia borrows about $5.5 billion every year. The North African state needs to pay back nearly $2.75 billion before the end of 2020. Authorities say that public debt servicing for 2021 would hit $5.1 billion, that is twice its development expenditure. The Finance Commission at the Tunisian Parliament will discuss several economic restructuring plans before voting on the 2021 state budget. Experts say the proposed $9 billion plan would aim to prevent the COVID-19 crisis from causing the collapse of the national economy, which is already facing many challenges.
And from the report there in Tunisia, we come back home because after 42 days, the Gambia government has finally lifted a 7-hour nightly curfew, and the move has been welcomed by citizens. The lifting of the curfew on Thursday forms part of a series of COVID-19 measures relaxed after the expiration of the latest state of public emergency. Details of that in this report by Mariama Cham.
Gambians have welcomed the government's decision on Thursday to loosen COVID-19 restrictions on movement and markets. COVID-19 restrictions have largely affected businesses and earnings, and for small business owners like Alaji Gay, a utensil vendor at the Serekunda market, it is good that the government has reverted to the usual market opening hours.
Well,
this is really a good thing because since the inception of the curfew, we have not been selling. Also, we have been sitting for 45 days and I am just opening my shop today because we normally open at 3 p.m. and before you remove all your goods to sell, it is almost 5. We really appreciate it. It has gone to an extent that I am used to napping.
The few opening hours imposed on markets left vegetable sellers unable to make enough sales and sometimes saw their goods perish due to lack of storage. Saja Konate, a vegetable seller at the Serekunda market, said she is happy that some of the regulations that limited her sales are relaxed.
When the government ended the curfew yesterday, many people were happy because there is massive poverty in the Gambia. We don't have anything if we do not come to the market to sell, which is our source of living. I come here to sell my vegetables, and sometimes some of them will get spoiled if it stays for days. But now the curfew has ended. Everybody is happy.
Over the last 42 days, night shift workers, especially taxi drivers and restaurant owners, have told iAfrica TV that nightly curfew was crippling their businesses. Azan, a cosmetics vendor, agreed. He said the curfew has destroyed so many night walks and activities.
We are happy with the announcement because the curfew has destroyed many night works and activities, because those working at night were not working. Sometimes you will even have work to do, but due to the curfew, you will have to stay back. It was not easy at all.
While people rejoice at the lifting of the curfew, some like Nene Jaju, a market vendor, said the curfew was in fact unnecessary in the first place.
Bari ñing ko fi biri ñin nata musolu ni la baka solu ta ye wafi nin talam fula sita do nga kam tale ko mal mo be molu no mala la fengol biti mol la fengol be kasara.
But since this curfew came, I didn't see any importance from it. You will see women trying to sell their goods, but immediately it is 2 p.m. The security will follow people, telling us that it is time we have to pack our goods. And when that happens, you will see that most of these goods will be destroyed. Sometimes when you keep your goods before evening, you will realize that the heat has spoiled everything.
The Gambian government said the curfew and a host of other COVID-19 restrictions were necessary to halt the spread of the virus. Despite this, the number of cases rose by 70% in August, and several businesses were affected and earnings for daily wage earners shut down. For iAfrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
Business owners there, of course, who welcome government's decision to relax some of the COVID-19 emergency regulations. Now to the matters of the new draft constitution that is tabled before deputies, because candidates running for president should hold at a minimum an undergraduate degree according to Gambia's draft constitution, which is currently before the National Assembly. Alternatively, the draft constitution also provides for holders of a senior secondary school certificate a chance to run for president. On Thursday, the minority leader of the National Assembly told iAfrica TV that he welcomes the flexibility of the new constitution on matters of who is qualified to run for president. Ibrahim John tells us more of that in this report.
Honorable Samba Bah, the minority leader of the National Assembly, has hailed the flexibility of the new constitution on the requirements for one to run for presidential office in future elections. The parliamentarian appreciated the draft constitution because it does not discriminate between degree holders and non-degree holders on who should be a presidential candidate.
I believe what the drafter did is to make a flexibility for every Gambian, whether you are highly educated or not highly educated. At the end of the day, it is the Gambian, it is rest of the Gambian to choose who should govern them, whether it's a degree holder, whether it's a high school holder, because the office did not discriminate. So if you want to put a degree there, you might be discriminating other Gambian.
Honorable Samba, who is also a member of the National Reconciliation Party, said he is optimistic in the successful conduct of the 2021 elections. He said the next cycle of elections should go ahead even if there are coronavirus cases at that time.
I think government is rethinking, because it looked like COVID-19 came to stay. If COVID-19 come to stay, I think there is no reason it can retard our programs. For me, I am 100% optimistic by December 2021, maybe even when there is an existence of COVID-19, there will be a way how we can live with COVID-19 and continue on our program. So in that regard, I don't believe, COVID-19 can definitely impact our election that is coming in 2021.
As per the draft constitution, a presidential candidate must be a citizen of the Gambia by birth, must be 30 years old, ordinarily resident in the Gambia for the 3 years before the elections, is of sound mind and is a registered voter. Presidential candidates must also hold a minimum of an undergraduate degree plus 5 years work experience in any field after the date of attaining that degree, or holds a minimum of a senior secondary school certificate or its equivalent plus 12 years work experience in any field after the date of attaining that certificate. The obligation is on the person who intends to be nominated for election as president to establish to the satisfaction of the independent boundaries and electoral commission that he or she is qualified. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Ibrahim John.
And from the report there by Ibrahim John, we will now take a break and come back shortly with the remaining update stories. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on iAfrica TV. And now to the rest of the stories. Now we head to South Africa because the South Africa government has further eased the COVID-19 lockdown measures as part of efforts to rekindle the country's economy. The Rainbow Nation is the hardest hit country in Africa, but a new plan is expected to further open up business activities as the country prepares to open its borders. Some citizens are still worried about the mechanism put in place. Here's more details of that in this report.
Ramaphosa reminded South Africans that more than 15,000 people had died and over 65,000 had been infected in that time. But since the July peak, the situation had improved, although the economic position had gotten worse, leading to a 16% GDP contraction in the second quarter.
Just as we have acted together to defeat this virus, we must roll up our sleeves and get to work rebuilding our economy. We have a mammoth task ahead of us.
The President confirmed that an economic plan was in the pipeline, with the Cabinet due to ratify it in the coming weeks.
What worries me in hearing about a new plan is that we've had lots of plans in the past, and those plans have consistently fallen short of promise, and in recent years that difference between promise and delivery has got wider and wider.
As the country prepares for the new normal, there was also good news for the international tourism sector.
We will be allowing travel into and out of South Africa for business, leisure and other travel with effect from the 1st of October 2020. This is subject to various containment and mitigation measures. Travel may be restricted to and from certain countries that have high infection rates. A list of those countries will be published, and it will be based on the latest scientific data that we will be able to get.
We're cautiously optimistic because we do know that there's a lot of detail that still has to come out. And so therefore, one of the things that we're looking for is we know that the individual ministers will be making presentations and we'll be issuing directions to support the level 1. So an important aspect for us is to determine what is on the list in terms of the states that are going to be allowed to fly in here. And I think reciprocally as well, they've also got to be wanting to accept us as South Africans flying into their part of the world.
But analysts say implementation of such plans is crucial if South Africa is to forge ahead during these difficult times.
South Africa sits structurally stuck. And one of those structural constraints is an absence of confidence and an absence of delivery in policy promise. Both of those capabilities sit in the hands of the policy makers.
The President has called for South Africans to roll up their sleeves because we need to get that economy kick-started again.
And from the report there in South Africa, finally to South Sudan, because after many months of closure, schools have now reopened in the country as the number of COVID-19 cases decreases, according to government officials. While students have expressed delight returning to classrooms after a long absence from school. However, health experts have warned the authority against complacency despite significant reduction of the number of cases. Let's have more details of that in this report.
6 months of school closures due to coronavirus are coming to an end in South Sudan. The government says the pandemic is now at a manageable level and schools should open across the country.
We have successfully fought COVID-19 pandemic. And South Sudan is one of the best countries now all over the world in which this pandemic is not that serious.
Non-governmental organizations working to support children in South Sudan are welcoming the reopening of schools.
While we talk about school reopening, it's actually important that not only the 2.2 million children who are out of school, but that we should now focus on getting all the children who are eligible to go to schools to register.
Health experts are advising the Ministry of Education to put in place coronavirus preventive measures before reopening schools. However, some learning institutions such as the University of Juba have already been open since Monday.
Staying at home, people are getting married, some are just staying without job, we have been sleeping. We are happy to resume.
We thank our government for the opening of the school. And we are very, very happy about it. These weeks, these months, we already suffer a lot. We suffer, we stay at home, and we are not studying. So it's a good chance to be back at the school.
Save the Children is urging other aid agencies supporting education in South Sudan to help equip schools with face masks, water and soap for regular washing of hands. As schools reopen, South Sudan's government is calling for continued support from non-governmental organizations for its health infrastructure. It wants to be as prepared as possible for a possible rise in cases due to schools reopening.
Schools there reopened in South Sudan as the number of coronavirus cases drops. I think there's a very welcoming news to end this news bulletin, of course. But for, of course, as usual, for more details on these stories and others, you can also log on our website on africa.tv. Well, once again, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye for now.
GSM. Star GSM Fele promotion bana fena molye minulbe mararing tanko bundala Gambia banko kanjang minubuko policeol armed forceol immigration customs anil lanjurtol datalar bala keta smartphone minka sannu wini worola sang wini woro doma isa soto minka sannu wini woro sang wini lu minka sannu wini lu sang wini nani manda smartphone doma simple phone fanan minul kasannu kemelula sang kemenani talulu milbe kemenani talulu sang keme sabatalulu ning original techno simple phone minu kasannu keme konontola sang keme worola isa soto mobile ambulance odum keme woro doma Star GSM e tabletu soto le pro dinningol wuli killing keme sey doma isa soto nin tabletul minu ka sim card uta wili fula keme saba isa soto HD universal remote fanan bijele flat screenol mini yalon ko la receiver be konole 42 lombang wala 43 inches isi soto no $4,999 wala $8,999 Star GSM manda wodo mala ngani original face mask sol sotole minsal tanka coronavirus sotola nga air freshenal fanan sotole pour alla sabati dinkiral aning official nyim bala muran tulol fanan bijele nyim flash couple ka bonali America alse muna fangala la official do wara alla sabati dinkiral pour jikando wala jisuma anda se sambano tilo mume ngani designer spray fanan sotale min zero ka tarafengo bala fo montoro wati monni nali andi botanam France le anin Dubai isina njibe no na bumbato min fele kombosila drive Serekunda OJ Johnson nyati lingol wala nanyun kunkilim bitikol min fele talindi marseto anin tabo koto traffic light auto isen kumandino 7002494 wala 9901122 Star GSM mfanankan kato dango kele puru mimbe banko sambala nyato